when they first seek reelection. The Democrats will have just over 30 freshmen, I believe, in the 111th Congress, but the GOP will have just over 20. So that's not a really bad imbalance. In the Senate, the Democrats are even better situated because in 2010, they'll need to defend 16 seats, and the Republicans will need to defend 19. Now, of course, none of this means that Obama is in an ideal position. The United States is in much worse shape than it was when George W. Bush became president. How much of that blame you want to place upon Bush? I'd probably place all of it on Bush. Well, at least a lot of it. Okay, but however bright and articulate and talented Obama is, he's going to have a lot of very difficult problems to solve, and if they're not largely solved 4 years from now, he could be facing serious difficulties.
Thank you very much, Paul, for a very enlightening, useful overview on the question. Sure, go ahead. If the materials that Paul provided didn't get to Northern or to Wayne State, we'll figure that out later. We meant to have them at all sites. I asked Paul to really talk about the election results. The next two speakers I've asked to mention about the election results, but also talk about the implications for unions and employment relations, because I think that's of great concern to many people in this audience. I'm very pleased for the second time in this program, Bart Stupak, United States Congressman from the Upper Peninsula and the Northern Lower, has agreed to join this program, I believe from his D.C. office this time. Is that correct?
Correct, John.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'll give you the same 10 minutes, and after then Dick Long speaks, we'll have questions and answers for all our audience.
All right, thank you, and thank you for allowing me to participate in this program, especially by video conference here tonight, and thank you for putting this program together. With discussions right now in Washington are still continuing for assistance for domestic automakers. While that's happening, unemployment claims have reached a record high nationwide, and the inauguration of Barack Obama as our president is 42 days away. So there's no better time to talk about the changes in store for American workers. The battle over the card check legislation allowing workers to form unions by signing authorization cards is expected to dominate the battle between business and labor in the next Congress. But unions are also pursuing a host of other goals that would radically change worker management rights, as well as broader policy goals on health care, trade, and energy. Consistent with President-elect Obama's message of change and the need to strengthen the middle class, we hope to move several bills to strengthen labor. Over the past several decades, union membership has declined, where it's only about 12% of today's workers, where in 1952 it was 35% of all American workers. The U.S. House moved a number of important bills in this session, the 110th Congress, to strengthen workers' rights. The key is the Senate, where most of these bills failed to receive the votes necessary to overcome potential filibusters. In the 2008 election, Democrats, as our last speaker indicated, increased the number of seats we hold in the Senate from 51 to 58. With the help of a few labor-friendly Republicans, I'm optimistic that the Senate has the 60 votes needed to block filibuster on labor-related measures. For instance, the Employee Free Choice Act, or card check bill, for example, received only 51 votes in the Senate in September of 2007. A bill to overturn the 2007 Supreme Court ruling in Ledbetter versus Goodyear and protect women and minority workers from wage discrimination received 56 votes in the Senate. Both of these bills passed the House, but would have faced opposition from the White House had they overcome the procedural obstacles in the Senate. But with increased Democratic majorities in both chambers of Congress and a labor-friendly White House, we can enact these important measures to protect American workers. Other labor priorities include federal legislation to grant collective bargaining rights to public service employees, such as firefighters and police officers. These public employees deserve the right to negotiate with their employer their wages and benefits. With the new administration coming in and the new Congress, workers could also see a reversal of anti-labor decisions handed down by the Bush administration. For instance, in 2006, the National Labor Relations Board, the NLRB, ruling changed the definition of a supervisor, severely limiting the number of employees that could join unions. Nurses are a great example, are heavily impacted by this decision. And I hope that we can reverse that decision when the new administration comes to town. For 8 years, the current administration has put investors and corporate executives ahead of American workers, and today we're all paying the price. In rebuilding the middle class, we'll also be rebuilding our entire economy. The first action by the new Congress in January will be to put together a stimulus package with critical infrastructure projects to put Americans back to work. President-elect Obama and the Democratic Congress will make healthcare and energy policy top priority reforms in this upcoming 111th Congress. A new healthcare policy in particular has potential to ease a huge financial burden on American workers and make our businesses more competitive at the same time. This week, congressional leaders in the White House are continuing to work with the Big Three to reach a deal to provide bridge loans to help them through the current credit crunch and the financial crisis. One of the biggest burdens on American automakers that many of their foreign competitors do not face is healthcare costs. GM alone spends more than $5.6 billion a year on healthcare for employees and retirees. Foreign competitors such as Toyota do not face such a large burden for healthcare because workers are covered under government-provided healthcare plans. One of the most important changes our country can expect to see from this past election is the dramatic shift in priorities. For too long, shareholders and executives have had the ear of the president and those who control Congress. For too long, American workers have been shut out and sold out for economic policies that we know are not working. Barack Obama will be sworn in as the 44th president of the United States next month because the middle class, everyday Americans want a change. I know the administration, the new administration and new Congress will put American workers first, and I look forward to working with labor leaders across Michigan and the United States to implement policies to put the unemployed back to work, to improve wages, benefits, and working conditions for all Americans. Thanks, and I look forward to answering any questions you may have on any NLRB decisions or any other legislation the Congress may take up in the 111th Congress.
Thank you very much. If anyone in the audience is not familiar with Bart Stupak's tremendous career in Michigan's House and now in the United States Congress, please do look at the bio and keep in touch with him. And as he said, we'll have questions and answers in just a second. At Wayne State, Dick Long, UAW International Union Camp Director, should be ready and queued and ready to talk to us for 10 minutes. Hopefully Dick will also talk about sort of similar topics. Are we set at Wayne State?
I think so. Can you hear me? I think we're set. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. And John, let me say before I start, thank you for your patience. As you know, I've been working on the auto stuff, so we've been back and forth. We didn't know until about 2 hours before I got here whether I was going to even be here or not. And I appreciate your invitation, as does our leadership. You asked us to talk a little bit about the election, about were we pleased with it, and that lasted for about 4 hours, and we were, let's say, ecstatic. And then we found out the autos were broke, and that ended that celebration. At that point, we tried to secure Georgia by sending staff into Georgia and tried to take out Saxby. We couldn't do that. We're currently working on the recount, which is going to end up in court. That's a Minnesota fiasco. We'll see how that one comes out. Officially, they're saying that Coleman sits with 238% of the vote, or 238 votes. Obviously, Franken's folks don't agree with that. But as far as the impact on the election, Bart touched on it, Congressman Stupak, a very good friend of Labor's, the Employee Free Choice Act, which all of Labor's gotten together on this one. We started back probably in August. In case anybody here tonight doesn't have them, I always happen to have a couple of them with them. We'd like to present the new president with Employee Free Choice Act cards, and all we're asking you to do is support it. We'd like to give the president on about the 20th and a half a million cards saying that this is prime interest to us. It's our right to organize on a level playing field. It's a right for people to be able to sit down and make the decision whether or not they want to become a part of a labor union. This can be done with some legislation. It gives the employees the same right. It'll stop the companies from bringing in these professional union busting people that make a lot of money, cause people a lot of grief, and basically deny them of their right to belong to a labor union. He asked, John also asked if I'd make some comments on the NLRB. I said, I don't know whether this is something we can do in public. Our last eight and a half years with the NLRB has been nothing to write home about. Ever since they've taken over, and as you follow a little bit of history, as the first speaker talked about, the NLRB was set up to protect working men and women. It used to be 4 Republicans, 4 Democrats, and of course the chairman of the committee was who was ever in power. Starting with Reagan, it started to deteriorate, and I don't believe there's a Democrat on there. If there is, it's in name only. Some of the things that Congressman Stupak checked on or talked about, the NLRB ruled against us. We represent grad students in a lot of universities, University of California, Berkeley, Cornell, Massachusetts, to name a few. The NLRB ruled that they cannot be involved in collective bargaining, and they cannot be afforded those rights. They can be a member of a union, but they can't collectively bargain. Congressman Stupak talked about the RNs. Now that one's near and dear to me because I happen to be married to an RN who got her specialist from this very university that I'm talking in tonight. She was involved in the drive to organize out at North Oakland Medical Center, and back in those days it was called Pontiac General Hospital, only to find out as an RN and as what they call a charge nurse or a staff nurse, where she gives out assignments, she can no longer be part of the bargaining unit. Also takes away her rights to overtime or any other thing. It makes them a supervisor. This is another real gift we got from the NLRB. Another thing the Bush administration and the NLRB took away is the right of the BATF, which is the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Basically, small police departments or private federal police departments, and also the TSA, the Transportation Authority. These are the folks you see at the airports after 9/11. They were denied the right to organize. They basically work for just over minimum wage. Their right to form a union has been taken away. Again, another gift from the NLRB and our good friend Elaine Chao. The NLRB has not been good to us. The labor folks in the room have probably experienced LMs. This is where you have to account for every minute of the day, whatever you're doing, be it political activity, lobbying, representing your membership, administrative cost. Once a month, you've got to fill out a form from memory saying what you did that month and what you did representing your members. Doesn't sound like a lot until you start turning your whole organization around. We have approximately 1,600 locals in the UAW, and all the officers in those locals, the 4 key officers, president, vice president, financial secretary, are required to fill out an LM form every month. Doesn't sound like a lot, but you have to account for all your time. Then we have what that's called the LM10. Then we get into the LM30. If you take anything from a company, then you have to fill out an LM30. If you go to a charitable event, you fill this form out. And just to show you what this can get into, we had a